Have you ever been in a classroom that's out of control? Do your students misbehave, disobey, and treat you with no respect?
Okay, class, let's get out our books and turn to page 52.
Hey, teach, how about let's not and say we did?
Yeah, right. Eat my shorts. Ugh, why do I have to be here? I hate school.
Are you feeling overwhelmed, hopeless, and powerless over your class? Then you should try assertive discipline.
Assertive discipline? What's that?
You've never heard of assertive discipline? Everybody's using it in schools these days. It was developed for teachers who failed to be assertive in having their needs met, resulting in feelings of overwhelmness and powerlessness.
Well, where do I begin?
First, you need to seek approval from your administrator and parents of the class. Then, you need to establish clear rules. They must be observable, enforced throughout the day, age-appropriate, and if it's punish-worthy, then it should be a clear rule. You must teach appropriate class behavior.
What do you already know about assertive discipline? Discuss with a partner for 30 seconds.
Hi everybody. Hey, today we'll be talking about assertive discipline. Assertive discipline starts on page 41 and ends on page
59.
59. In the textbook, you'll see that assertive discipline was developed by Lee and Marlene Carter in the early 1970s. You also see that in 2009, Kislik says assertive discipline is the most widely used discipline plan in schools. So from our small skit before, you can see that assertive discipline was pretty much developed for teachers who failed to be assertive, having their needs met, resulting in feelings of overwhelmness and powerlessness. Assertive discipline works by systematically applying behavioral strategies to classroom situations. And a lot of teachers like using this method because it makes them feel like they have power over the classroom. Students tend to listen and behave a lot better. And the way they use it is first, they'll practice assertive responses to class conflicts. So if there's a conflict in class and maybe students are not behaving the way they're supposed to be, you've set rules and they're not following them, you have to set your tone of voice in the classroom. You have to practice responses to this kind of conflict. For example, if they're picking on another student or something, you have to be pretty strict and go ahead and immediately talk to them about it. And then, second of all, along with that, you need to establish your class rules. So you need to be very precise, and if it's punishable, then it should be a class rule. You shouldn't leave anything out that you expect of students, because they can't read your mind. And if they're randomly punished for something, then that's just kind of cruel if they don't know what they've done wrong or didn't know that it was wrong. The third one is you need to establish a hierarchy of consequences for when the rules are broken. So for example, you could start out with a warning, then as the behavior gets worse, it can go towards, for example, they are to write sentences, maybe they lose recess, and so on and so forth. Like, it gets worse as the behavior worsens. Number 4, you need to determine a system for recording violations of the rules. For example, you could have students' name on a marker board, all their names, and then, or just name tags in general. And then to track their violations of rules, you could put like a tick mark beside their name throughout the day. If they're breaking rules, they get more tick marks. And then something to note though, it's good for students to have a clean slate every day. So they start out with no tick marks at all. Number 5, you should establish a reward system for individual students and for class as a whole, for positive consequences, for example. A good reward system could be, so you're providing positive reinforcement for like as a class as a whole. You could have a marble jar, for example. You can put marbles in the jar every time the class does something great that day. And then by the time the marbles fill up the jar and the jar is full, you could have a class party or you could have a field trip. For individual students, for praise, you could send positive notes or phone calls to parents. So these students could get special privileges, awards, certificates, or tangible items like treats from a treasure chest or candy in general. For the negative consequences, you should select appropriate consequences, and it should be in a hierarchy, like I said, starting with a warning and then increasing. And then you should have your recording tracking system. You should generally have 5 consequences, but they should never be harmful. It's important to note that consequences do not have to be severe in order to be effective, but these consequences should be applied every time that the behavior occurs. And then we've talked about how examples of things that could go in this hierarchy could be students, if they misbehave really badly, say they've hurt another student, that is when they could have a call home to parents, a negative phone call. There could be timeouts. You could have them stay after class. You could have them miss recess. You could have them write in a behavioral journal. You're just kind of taking things away from them and then establishing a thought of, hey, if I do something wrong, then I'm going to get punished for it. It's things that students won't like, obviously. And then you should acquire support for the discipline plan from your school administrators. You need to make sure that everybody knows what you'll be doing in your classroom, and that includes sharing the plan with the parents to secure support of this kind of discipline in class, to make sure everybody's on the same track and they know that if their child is misbehaving, then they will get a phone call, and then you can work it out together afterwards to find the correct plan to deal with the student's behavior. And I think that's pretty much it.
And then with assertive discipline, of course, with every type of discipline, you're going to have strengths and you're going to have weaknesses. So with assertive discipline, some of the strengths include that Cantor noticed that the research of assertive discipline has shown that teachers dramatically improve student behavior with assertive discipline, because assertive discipline, it gives discipline, but it also allows students to make choices of how they want to act and to how they're going to get consequences or get rewards. So it's fully the student's responsibility of what happens to them. They get to choose to act up, or they get to choose to be good and listen. So whatever they choose is what they're going to get. Another strength is discipline. Assertive discipline addresses student behavior rather than character. So when the rules are broken, the student's not being judged by who they are or how they are as a person. They're being judged on their actions. So no matter who the student is, whether they're a good student normally or a bad student, no matter who's doing something, if they're doing something wrong and breaking the rules, they're going to be punished the same way as everybody else. So this is a good thing, because a lot of students feel as if they're being bullied by the teacher because of the consequences they're receiving. But in reality, with assertive discipline, everyone's being treated the same no matter what. They know what the rules are and they know what the consequences are. So they're being judged by their behavior, not who they are. Another thing is this plan, like Brianna says, requires approval from your administration. And also, you need to notify the parents and maybe even send home a letter to the parents and have them sign it as well as the students, because that means the students will be, of course, they'll know what the rules are at school, but their parents will also know what the rules are. So their parents will be in total agreement with the consequences their child's receiving if they understand what the rules are and what the consequences are. So it just helps everybody be in the same boat of understanding, and it helps everything run smoothly. And then another thing is you need to be able to implement these rules and consequences from the very first day that the students walk in the room. So if it has to take the whole week of the first week of school, it must. And the students need to know the procedures, they need to know rules, and once they get those down, then they will probably not forget them as long as they're enforced. So another thing is assertive discipline. It balances negative and positive consequences, and it doesn't focus on obedience. So it allows, like I said, allows students to weigh their positive consequences and negative consequences. So they get to be the main person making the decision based off their behavior. But of course, there's weaknesses in assertive discipline as well. And some of these suggest that it can be counterproductive. So all students in class, if they misbehave, they get their board name written on the board, or they get something done where they get their name said in class and told to sit down. Well, sometimes students don't care what happens unless it gets to a very serious point. So sometimes assertive discipline can not be super effective with certain students who don't care if they get in trouble because they're not getting huge consequences put against them. Another thing is assertive discipline. It establishes an authoritarian environment. So students sometimes feel like they might not have any rights if they're not allowed to do certain things. So some students might feel as if they're stuck in a classroom where they have no control. But in reality, with assertive discipline, it really does give them control over their actions and their consequences that they face. They just have to understand that there are rules and there are consequences and it's their decision. But some students might feel as if this is not a good way to discipline. So another thing is assertive discipline. It may only stop behavior for a short time, and it might not translate to other areas in the school. So in the classroom, the students might listen to their teacher. They might follow every single rule that the teacher has, and they know the consequences. But sometimes if they go to the cafeteria or the gym or the library or to another classroom, they may not use that same type of rules, or they might have different types of rules in the classroom. And sometimes students feel as if when they leave their classroom, those rules that they have don't matter anymore. So sometimes assertive discipline could make students feel like it only matters in that one room. So that's one weakness of it. It can make students think other places in the school are more free range, which is not really true, but they might think that. And then another thing that's negative about assertive discipline that some people might think is it does not attempt to find the cause of the misbehavior. So with some other disciplines, they're always trying to figure out why the student is acting the way they are. But in this discipline, the teacher is just trying to control the class so they can get the content taught, and they just want the behavior to stop no matter what. So what they do is they just get the student to sit down or to stop talking, and they just keep checking off the list until the student finally listens. But so they're just treating the symptoms of their behavior. They're not really trying to talk to the student and figure out why they're acting the way they're acting. So sometimes if you don't figure out the cause of a behavior, it's going to keep happening and keep happening. So that's one weakness of this discipline, but it does help you control the class. So it's just the way you handle it and how you like your class to be controlled. So there are so many different ways you can put assertive discipline into play and different personalities, but the way you do it can really make a difference in your classroom.
And on top of that, we've seen non-assertive discipline being used in this video. We've also seen an example of hostile. These are both basic response styles of teacher. You can be any kind of teacher. These are the most common. There's non-assertive, there's hostile, and then there's also assertive. So non-assertive is where the teacher fails to make student expectations known. They threaten bad behavior, but students know there will be no follow-through. They know you're not going to do anything about it, and they just can continue to do what they want to do. And then hostile is where the teacher is very negative. The consequences of the student's behavior is too severe and harsh. And basically, the students are scared. They're scared of coming to the classroom. They're scared of the teacher. And a lot of times, I think that it would help with behavior perhaps, but it also, if a student's scared, they're not really going to be focusing on learning and doing their best.
They're focused on not getting in trouble every second.
Yeah. And then on assertive, it's a really good response style of a teacher because the teacher clearly and firmly expresses their needs. They're consistent and fair with their rules and expectations and their consequences, positive and or negative. And the teacher is respected in the classroom. Once you get respect, I really think that you can handle a classroom and the behavior is a lot more controlled. I think you can get a lot more of what you want from your students as far as behavior and their learning and their educational responses and everything. Mm-hmm. So we've taken a look at a non-assertive response style of teaching. Let's go ahead and look at how a hostile teacher teaches their classroom. Okay, class, and next over here is China. Do you see this? Did you just ask me to repeat a question? Come here, give me your hand. Now that that's over, excuse me, sir, are you chewing gum in my classroom? It says clearly right here, no chewing gum in my classroom. You will stay in recess and write 100 sentences on the chalkboard. Yep, that's what you get. I am the teacher of this classroom, and you will listen to me.
What are some important aspects you notice in this example of hostile discipline? Talk with a partner for 30 seconds. Hi, Megan here, and I don't always have a rowdy class, but when I do, I use assertive discipline, and it looks like this. Okay, so I want everyone to look up here. I want somebody to tell me where the United States is on the North American continent. Yes, Allison.
Is it at the top left?
Not quite. Ben, can you please be more respectful? Do not poke Allison with your pencil. How many strikes do you have today? You have 3 strikes. If you get one more strike today, you're going to be missing recess. So I suggest you quit poking her with a pencil, please. Any questions? Alright class, today we're going to be writing our North American countries on our maps.
And go to that party, man.
John,
Yes, ma'am.
could you please listen while I'm talking? This is your third strike today, John. Okay? So, we need you to write in your behavioral journal today right before lunch, alright?
Okay.
One more strike, and then you will be missing recess today.
I'm sorry.
Alright, Cindy, I really like how you're working quietly. Allison, you've been listening so good today. Come get you a gummy bear out of the bowl. You guys are doing so great. What are some important aspects you notice in this example of assertive? Talk with a partner for 30 seconds. Review of important concepts of assertive discipline. Types of assertive discipline. Non-assertive discipline. Teacher fails to make student expectations known. They also know that the teacher will not follow through with consequences. Teacher is not usually respected. Hostile discipline. When the teacher is very negative with super harsh consequences on everything. Students tend to be scared of doing anything in the class. Teacher may be respected but very harsh and hard to approach. Assertive discipline. Very good style. Teacher expresses rules, procedures, and consequences very clearly. The teacher also follows through with consequences continuously and knows the students know exactly what to expect. The teacher is respected as well. The 7 steps on how to use assertive discipline. Practice. Practice assertive responses to the class. Establish. Establish clear class rules. Establish hierarchy of consequences when rules are broken. Develop. Develop a system of recording violations of rules as well as rewards. Establish a reward system for individuals as well as the whole class. Acquire support for your discipline plan from your school administration. And share. Share a plan with parents and secure supports. Hierarchy of consequences. A hierarchy of consequences should include about 5 levels of consequences, the first being a warning. With each infraction of a rule, consequences should escalate. Examples include missing recess, writing a behavior journal, calling parents and principal's office. Guidelines for selecting consequences. There should be no more than 5 consequences. Consequences must be something that students dislike, but never physically or psychologically harmful. Consequences do not have to be severe to be effective. For 70% of students, a simple warning is effective. 20% may need more than a warning, and 10% will cause real problems and require the severity clause. Negative consequences should be applied every time a student chooses to behave inappropriately. According to Cantor and Cantor, students' rights include the right to know the behavior expected of them by the teacher, the right to have firm and consistent limits established so they can eliminate inappropriate self-disruptive behavior, the right to have consistent encouragement so they'll be motivated to interact appropriately, and the right to know the consequences of inappropriate behavior, the right to be taught acceptable and responsible behavior as well. Strengths of assertive discipline. 1. This discipline improves student behavior dramatically. It gives students a choice. 2. Addresses student behavior and not their character of who they are. 3. Requires approval from administration and notification to parents, so it involves all members of the student's education and will allow better communication for all involved. 4. It can be taught the first day of school as well as the first week. And 5. It allows balance of negative and positive consequences and does not focus just on obedience. Weaknesses of assertive discipline. This discipline can be counterproductive. Some students may not care about getting in trouble through the hierarchy of consequences. 2, establishes authoritarian environment. So it may have students feeling as if they have no choice and they may feel like they're stuck in class with a ton of rules. 3, it may only stop behavior for a short time and maybe only in that classroom. And 4, it does not attempt to find the cause of misbehavior like other disciplines might. One, what are the 3 types of assertive discipline? 2, what are the 7 basic steps of using assertive discipline? 3, what is a hierarchy of consequences? Four, describe one trait of non-assertive discipline. 5, describe one trait of hostile discipline. And 6, describe one trait of assertive discipline. Seven, true or false? Assertive discipline is widely used. 8, who created assertive discipline? And 9, true or false? Non-assertive teachers are consistent with class rules.
This has been Assertive Discipline
By Megan
and Brianna.
and Conrad.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.